Today I'm going to make just a nice Khatti or red lentil dhal. Dhal being one of those it's the true staple of Indian food. Extremely healthy, lovely, high in protein, and lends itself to being served with other things. It's kind of a soup stew with lentils, various types, and it's one of those really nice, handy ones to have in your cookery repertoire. So anyhow, for this, what I have is 150 grams of red lentils. I've soaked them for about 3 or 4 hours in water and just drained off the water. It just makes them a little easier to cook. I have 3 large red onions, which I've just cut into a small dice. I have 1 chili, which I've just chopped. Now you can adjust the chili yourself. If you don't like it too spicy, I like a nice bit of chili. But again, everything is based on what you like yourself as well. I also have 4 cloves of garlic on this, which are just roughly chopped up. I have 200 milliliters of coconut milk. And I also have 60 grams of raisins, just normal raisins or sultanas, doesn't really matter. And then for some vegetables, which I'm going to just serve as a kind of an accompaniment to this, I have a yellow pepper, just roughly chopped. You can use whatever veg you like, really yourself. I have about 250 grams, or that's roughly half of a cauliflower, just into nice bite-sized florets. I have half a courgette there, which is just chopped into chunks. And I have about 100 grams of spinach, which will cook down quite a lot. I'm also going to use more as garnish. I have the seeds of half a pomegranate. And then for seasonings, I have 2 bay leaves. My ones are fresh, but the dried are perfectly good as well. It's whatever you have there. I have about a teaspoon of smoked paprika. I'm going to add extra turmeric into this dish. So I have about 3 teaspoons of turmeric. I also have 2 heaped teaspoons, well heaped, of mild Madras curry powder. I also have a teaspoon of ginger, just ground ginger. You could use fresh as well. The fresh probably would be better. I just didn't have any handy when I was doing this. And then I have about a teaspoon of cumin seeds. And then I'm just going to use a little bit of coconut oil for cooking, some salt and some pepper for seasoning. So there we have it. The first part of making the dhal is going to be adding about 2 teaspoons of coconut oil into a good thick bottom pot or casserole. And I like having a lid on this one as well. Not completely necessary, but it is handy. And then it's all about developing your flavor on this. So I'm going to add all of my red onions in. And the first step is to cook the red onions. I'm just going to put it till they're nice and rendered down. Very, very well cooked, because this is developing that flavor. So let those onions fry. I'm going to pop a heavy lid on that. And I'm going to let those cook, keeping an eye on them as they're cooking until they're very, very well cooked and rendered. Now, I've been cooking my onions at nice heat for about 7-8 minutes. As you can see, they're after cooking down. Really nice. Again, this is when you're developing your flavor. Into this now, I'm just going to add a pinch of salt. And just a bit of black pepper as well. I didn't add them earlier because I didn't want to be burning the spice, the herb, the pepper. Generally, when you're cooking down onions a lot, you don't want to add the salt at first because you don't want it to over sweat at the beginning, because you want to get that nice kind of fried taste into the onion, which is really important with this dish. When your onions are just starting to brown, I'm now going to add my chili, my garlic. It's at this point that you're developing all the flavor for the dhal. So it's important, just take your time with this and get it nice. And then I'm just going to reduce my heat down to a nice moderate heat. and let those flavors develop. And again, it's just take your time, relax, enjoy the kind of cookery process. As you can see, I've got it on a slightly lower heat now, as I'm adding once I start adding the chili and the garlic, because I don't want my garlic to burn. Garlic goes very bitter when it starts to burn, so you don't add it at the same point as the onions. Next thing I'm going to add then is my spices. I have my 2 bay leaves. I'm just going to pop in now. And then I have my smoked paprika, my ginger, my cumin, and my turmeric. I'm just going to add all those as well. Keep it at a lower heat now, because again, you don't want these spices to burn. You want to develop the flavor, but you don't want to destroy the flavor. And just make those mix through the onion with a little bit of oil at a low heat at this point, and just kind of let them toast through. Mixing in well, allowing everything to cook, and just kind of develop into a nice flavor profile. There's real skill with Indian cookery. I'm afraid the skill of some of the Indian chefs is something that I'll probably never be able to match because what they do with food is really amazing. Into that now, I'm going to add about a cup of water. Kind of letting that develop into a sauce. Now I've used a lot of extra turmeric in this as well, because I want this bright vivid yellow, but also turmeric being such a valuable anti-inflammatory ingredient, and that is the purpose of the way I'm cooking here. Next I'm going to add my steeped lentils all together. Just mix them through that. It will grow a little bit as they're cooking. And I'm going to add again enough water just to cover the dish. And now I'm just going to raise my temperature a little bit just to bring it up to a simmer, then I'm going to reduce that temperature again. And let the lentils cook through. Keep an eye on it, you don't want it to stick on the bottom. So keep it well stirred, this will want to burn on you. And just going to add a little bit more water there, as you can see. It will thicken up as the lentils start to cook and also evaporate a little bit as well. So I'm just going to let that come to a nice gentle simmer and start to cook out. And as you can see, that's just coming to a nice simmer now. So I'm just going to reduce my heat. And keeping it stirred, and as it's stirring, make sure the wooden spoon is in contact with the bottom of your casserole or your pot, and stirring it from the bottom so that none of the dal gets a chance to stick on the base. Otherwise it'll become, again, it can catch and it can burn. But just take your time with this one, let it cook away, it'll get there. And again, steeping the lentils, you could cook the lentils with the lentils from their dried form, but they don't cook as easily. Like this is much easier. And if you start finding that this is getting a little bit too thick as you're going, you want this nice kind of soupy kind of consistency, just add a little drop of water as you're going. Now as you can see, this is getting nice and thick, and I want that to happen, because I'm going to be now adding my coconut milk just to give it a nice creamy texture, bring it to life a little bit. Also at this stage, I'm just going to add a little pinch of salt. I tasted it just a second ago and I thought it was a little bit under-seasoned, so just a little bit, pinch of salt. I'm also going to put a little bit of pepper in there as well. And now I'm just going to let it cook until all the lentils become nice and soft. What you'll find is that little piece of coconut milk now will just mellow the whole thing out as well, making it quite tasty. Again, this is one of those dishes you can. It's very satisfying. It's very it fills you up very, very well. You could just serve this as it is. I'm going to be cooking some vegetables to serve with it. It's not uncommon to use poppadoms are a good choice, just grilled as opposed to fried, or else some naan breads or things are commonly used as this to eat along with this. But it's a very, very versatile little recipe. Now, having allowed this to simmer away over a low heat, you can see it's just thickening up quite nicely. I want this, if you can imagine you have a piece of naan bread, you want to be able to use the bread to be able to pick up the dhal. So you don't want it gloopy thick, but you don't want it soupy either. You want it so that you could basically imagine scraping it up with some nice breads or things like that, for the naan breads or whatever, or chapati breads and so on. So as you can see, texture wise, I'm allowing it to, again, as I said, not become like a thick porridge, but certainly not a light soup either. Just this nice kind of a texture to it. So it's the best way is just to show you as it's starting to thicken up. So don't be lightening it down at that stage. Now, that's virtually cooked now for me. It took about 20 minutes over a medium heat for me. It depends. Sometimes lentils act a little differently there, so it might vary depending how you're cooking it. If you think it's getting too thick, again, just add a little drop of water. But again, and this is one of those dishes as well that'll store very, very well in the fridge. So I'm just going to take that aside, and the next thing I'm going to do is just leave that in the pot, let it hold there, let it infuse, and I'm going to cook the veg that I'm going to be serving with this. For my vegetables, I'm going to just preheat a good non-stick pan. I'm going to put about a teaspoon of coconut oil into the pan. Let that melt down just for a second. And the first vegetable I'm going to just pop into the pan is my cauliflower. I'm going to let the cauliflower sear a little bit because I want to get a good lot of heat into that. You know, almost get a little bit of colour onto it. The dhal itself is just cooking away there nicely itself. I'm just going to pop a lid on the pan, just allow it to get started. And then I'm going to fry and sear down that cauliflower nicely. Just to speed the cauliflower along a little bit, just to start it off, I'm going to add about a tablespoon of water into the pan as well. And that will just get everything up and cooking really fast. And now with my cauliflower, as you can see, some of them are taking on just a little bit of colour, and I want that. Cauliflower likes to, you know, it's develop a little bit of flavour on it. So allow that to cook away for just a second. Obviously not burn it, but you want to get a little bit of browning on the cauliflower itself. And now at this stage, I'm going to add in, and you can see some of the cauliflower starting to sear a little bit. I'm going to add in my peppers and my courgettes. Again, just to start them along nicely, I'm going to first just add a little pinch of salt at this stage. I'm just going to add about another tablespoon of water. Cover all that up. As you can see, I use very, very little oil when I'm cooking like this. A good pan. If my pan goes dry, I tend to turn to water as opposed to extra oil. And that'll speed along now the cookery We'll leave that lid on for maybe about 30 seconds, maybe up to a minute even. And but do keep an eye on it if you're not sure. And then we'll look at finishing that. So I'm just going to be checking that again now. As you can see, vegetables are just cooking and rendering down nicely. Their cauliflower has a little bit of colour in it. I'm just going to let those fry and develop a little bit more flavour. Well, fry is barely the case because I've used only so little oil. Again, if you think your pan is dry, a little drop of water is all you need. And at this stage, I want to bring a little bit of sweetness into this dish, and that's why I'm using the raisins. So I'm going to add my raisins into the veg. And just to plump them up a little bit, I'm going to add a little drop more water. And allow them to cook like that just for a few more minutes. And that way when you're eating your dhal, you're going to get these lovely little hits of sweetness. I'm bringing a little sweetness in two ways. I'm also going to garnish with some pomegranate seeds. And again, the thinking there is to bring that little bit of sweetness into the dish, which I find works very well with curry type dishes. I'm just going to cover that over for just a second more. Allow it to cook for about another 30 seconds. So I have it waited about 30 seconds. The veg are just getting the way I want them. A little bit of colour onto them and looking a little bit interesting. Now I'm just going to pop in all my spinach together. Just going to cover that over. Again, if you think your pan is a little dry, just add a little water. I think mine is okay at the moment. And I'm just going to let that spinach cook down. That'll only take a couple of seconds. We've just waited a few minutes, a few seconds I should say. Spinach is just cooking down a little bit. I'm going to add a pinch more salt to that. A little pepper. And that is the veg and the dhal cooked. More than adequately cooked that. As you can see as well, the dhal itself has become lovely and thickened as it was just standing in the water there, and that's the kind of texture I want. Because when I rest the vegetables on top of this and bring the whole dish together, I don't want the veg sinking into it. That's why I kept the veg nice and dry at this stage as well, because I don't want to be adding more water into this and making this soupy. I want to keep it nice and a kind of a thick. So I'll show you how to plate this one up now. So to plate my dhal, what I'm going to do is I can spoon or I can pour my dhal, all of it, into an appropriate size serving dish. I like to put things in the middle of a table and let people take what they want. Just going to spread that out nice and neatly. And as you can see, that's the texture we want. And then over the dhal, I'm going to just simply cover with my vegetables. Nice and neatly, let them kind of fall over the whole thing. And those raisins bring that nice sweetness into the dish then. And finally, just to give that nice piece of vibrancy and colour, and also a little bit more sweetness, I'm going to put on my pomegranate seeds. Plenty, generous, but a half a pomegranate. Or if it's a smaller pomegranate, of course, you could use the whole pomegranate. And that is it. A nice simple little dhal with plenty of vegetables. You're going to find this loads packed of protein, fibre, very, very balanced. A very, very tasty dish. Which, you know, it's another thing with this is it's incredibly economical. And it's a real filler-upper. You can eat plenty of this without having too many guilt worries, but it absolutely fills you brilliantly. Okay, thank you.